I'm Dana Denha, and you're watching FYI. The University of Michigan may be known worldwide for their skills on the gridiron, and for the last 3 years, they've been using the game to shape the future for inner city kids.
For 2 weeks a year, the Youth Impact Program is changing the lives of middle schoolers through academics, football, and most importantly, teamwork.
We bring in 100 middle school age kids from inner city Detroit to come up, and we focus on academic enrichment as well as developing their athletic abilities.
It has so many elements to it. It's not just football, not just rolling out a ball, and it's not great football instruction, how to throw the ball, how to catch the ball. These are life-changing types of experiences. In the morning, for the entire morning, it's strictly academics. Reading, writing, math, science.
Jim Harbaugh came in to talk during our first class, so he talked about different stuff, like life, really. And so really almost every day we have speakers, and they just give us a different input on life.
This is one of the most, if not the most important things that the University of Michigan football program does. Just having the opportunity to use the platform that we have, as well as the platform that the Marines have and our teachers, everybody that's involved. We come from a lot of different backgrounds and areas, but we've all got the same goal, and that's to help these kids out.
The main thing that I learned is that no matter where you come from, no matter what your environment is, you can do anything you want to as long as you believe you can.
It has to do with how you live your life. Waking up in the morning with that enthusiasm unknown to mankind. I'm going to make this day better than yesterday, and I'm going to make tomorrow better today. And it isn't just athletics or football, and it's life. I want to be better at life.
For more on this rewarding camp for kids, visit youthimpactprogram.org. Stay tuned, and we'll be back shortly with more news and information. Ann Arbor is the place to be in the summer, and there is no better time than hanging at Gallup Park, surrounded by the beauty of the river.
For 37 years, Huron River Day has been educating us about our local body of water.
Long ago, with citizens and government agencies that really got together and how can we bring people down to the river? How can we improve the quality of the river?
This outreach celebration imparts wisdom about the river and the many ways to enjoy it.
We have paddle boats, rowboats, single kayaks, double kayaks, canoes, stand-up paddle boards, and tubes, so lots of different ways to get out and enjoy. And then we have many people who fish the river.
The U of M Museum of Natural History modeled the magnificent Huron and the land that surrounds it.
We've set up a stream table, which is a 13-foot river simulation where we demonstrate how a river flows and how erosion occurs within your community and how groundwater works to build up and spread pollution and other things in a watershed.
Insects like to spend quality time on or near the river.
We put the butterflies in the tent, and they're allowed to go in and feed the butterflies. We give them a Q-tip, and on the Q-tip is Gatorade.
It's really just a reminder of what an important resource we have and what a beautiful resource it is. And so come and enjoy it and be a part of it. And I think then you will become a steward of the river and want to protect it forever.
There are so many plant species available out there, but it benefits the ecosystem when you think about greenery native to our area. Learn more about native planting from the Natural Area Preservation in this month's City Roundup in 60.
Hi, my name is Michael Hahn. I'm a stewardship specialist with the City of Ann Arbor's Natural Area Preservation. Today we're going to talk about using native plants for gardening. Native plants are not only beautiful, but they're also beneficial to wildlife, such as pollinators like bees and butterflies. So when you're thinking about gardening, you want to think about color throughout the whole season. And so thinking about using penstemon in early June or common milkweed, which would be beneficial to monarchs, or you could use black-eyed Susans later in the summer, or you could switch over and use goldenrods for late August, and even use asters for late fall. Like I mentioned before, native plants, not only are they beautiful, but they're also beneficial to wildlife.
You may have heard chatter about changes to Ann Arbor's recycling program. Recycle Ann Arbor has been collecting our curbside materials since the 70s, but now they are officially processing them too. Joining me is Chessler-Stull, Outreach and Zero Waste Coordinator, and Bryan Weinert, Director of Strategy for Recycle Ann Arbor. Welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Welcome back, Christine. And Bryan, I know you've been around CTN, but this is your first time with me on FYI.
Correct.
So what I think we should start to tackle with this is, I guess the first question will be maybe some of the issues that we were having in the past with the recycling process and how you plan to solve them.
Yeah, I can begin with that. The City of Ann Arbor has had its own materials recovery facility, or MRF, since 1995. And over the last couple of years had some real problems with the operator. So they had contracted that service from the very beginning, so a publicly owned, privately operated facility. The last couple of years, the city had been having more and more trouble with the operator that was in place at that time, operational issues, safety issues, and it finally reached a point in 2016, July of 2016, that the city felt like it needed to take action, that they did not feel comfortable any longer with that operator. And so terminated the contract and put in place waste management to kind of fill the void immediately so that the city could continue to process recyclables while they've kind of figured out what their next steps would be. They then decided to put out that service to competitive bid. And that service did not include operating the full facility, because, again, of the operational and safety issues and the condition of the equipment. They were not comfortable continuing that part of the operation. And so when Waste Management took over, and now when Recycle Ann Arbor has taken over in the last month, we are solely responsible for receiving the material and transferring the material to another facility for processing. So that is the role that we've now undertaken and that Waste Management had been undertaking previously, while the city determines whether or not it feels like it can make the necessary repairs to the now 22-year-old facility, or whether they want to start kind of fresh with a new and potentially larger and more sophisticated facility to carry us forward into the future.
So we don't know what's happening to the MRF at this point.
Right, it's still being evaluated. The city has brought in, I think, a contractor to do a full-scale assessment of what would really be involved to bring that facility up to standard, and whether it's worth it for a facility that's already 22 years old.
Right.
What kind of capital would be necessary to bring it back up into full operating condition. And so we kind of await that word, and then we'll determine kind of what those next steps are. But I think even if the city were to decide to make those necessary improvements, I don't think it would kind of solve the problem in the long term. I think that might buy another 3 to 5 years of use, but the city's already talking about how it might then move into the future, longer term, even if they're able to squeeze a few more years out of the existing facility.
Yeah. So I guess the confusing part to me would be, so you guys are collecting and processing, and now where are you putting the recyclables?
Good question,
Yes.
Yeah.
So we have partnered with a company out of Ohio, family-owned recycling and waste company. It's called Rumpke Waste and Recycling. They have a state-of-the-art materials recovery facility in Cincinnati. So we are transferring all of the residential material that's brought to the Ann Arbor MRF to the Cincinnati facility, and then the commercial recyclables that are brought into the facility, given that the nature of those materials is very different from what we find curbside or in the residential mix, that material is being baled at the Ann Arbor MRF and then shipped to a local buyer of those materials. That material is about 80% corrugated cardboard, and so that's kind of the primary market for that material, and we were able to keep that local. but then the residential mix is making its way to Cincinnati.
So you
in
are using the MRF in some facet
Correct.
right now,
Really
which
more as a
makes
transfer operation.
Because you have to be able to put the stuff somewhere.
Somewhere, and
Yeah.
then transfer it into much larger trucks.
Yeah.
So it's also getting dumped there. Basically, it's being used as kind of a floor, the
Yeah.
tip floor,
Right.
and then we're being able to put into trailers.
But you're
to get
not
it to
actually using
Rumpke.
any of the equipment.
No, the
there.
sorting, nothing like that.
Other
is
than the
being
baler
used.
for the commercial.
Yeah.
stream.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
So is this going to affect us at the residential level, like what we're able to recycle? Or are we going to see a change in maybe single stream recycling? Or
As of right now, no. Rumpke recyclers, they're really working with us to make sure that everything that Ann Arbor residents have been able to collect curbside, they're still going to have that to be able to process it. So the guidelines are still the same. Nothing has changed as of right now.
I think it would be hard personally to go away from single stream once you're used to doing it and having to separate everything. I can't even remember how doing it anymore.
Where does this go?
Yeah.
Overall, nationally, single stream has increased participation. There are issues with contamination because what we like to say in this industry is wishful recycling. So a lot of folks think, oh, single stream, it all goes into one big blue bin and they're going to sort it out. That's not always the case. So we want folks to make sure they look at their guidelines and, again, keep doing what you've been doing in Ann Arbor. The guidelines are still the same.
And now with Recycling Ann Arbor taking over, the big difference, I guess, would be the glass recycling, because in the past I've heard, you were recycling maybe your glass, but it really wasn't being recycled.
It was being reused as landfill cover. So now with Rumpke, we do have a glass recycling process down there.
Yeah, so glass has been a problem material for quite some time. As I think the average American consumer would realize, there's less and less, right, that's being packaged in glass. So as a packaging medium, it's slowly declined in its use. And it has also become and been difficult to recycle, again, because of the contamination issues that enter into the glass stream when it's mixed with so many other materials. And then you add to it the complexity of pulling off labels and caps and that sort of thing. So it's difficult to recycle effectively anyhow. And finding local markets turned out to be very difficult. So for the last several years, the city, the best that they could kind of do is provide it to the local landfill, waste management, to use as alternative daily cover. Because in landfills, every day at the end of the day, you need to cover that waste overnight for a variety of reasons before you start the next day's materials coming in. And so it at least became a substitute for using topsoil, basically, for that application.
Yeah.
Pretty low use, but it wasn't being landfilled in a technical sense.
Right, it was being reused.
Yeah.
So that's
But
what
at
we
a
wanted
really
to get across to
basic
the
level.
community. Yeah.
But one of the reasons that we partnered with Rumpke is that they've invested several $1 million into a glass beneficiation facility in Dayton, Ohio, just up the road from Cincinnati, that thoroughly sorts, cleans, grinds the glass actually to it actually looks like sand. And then they're marketing that to a fiberglass manufacturer and a glass container manufacturer. So the high-end recycling.
Yeah.
And really, really pleased with that. And even though glass has declined relative to other materials as a share of the waste stream, it still makes up over 12% of the recycling mix in Ann Arbor. So by weight, it still is a fairly significant product. And we're really happy that it's now back to a point where it's getting that highest and best end use.
Yeah, so we definitely want residents to continue putting the glass into the recycling bin, knowing now that it is getting recycled at a higher level.
And then the one big thing that you're doing now is the loose hauling instead of the baling. And can you talk about the benefits to that?
Yeah, and that was a strategic decision that we had gotten some very clear feedback throughout the industry, including from our partner Rumpke Waste, who has handled both baled single stream as well as loose single stream materials. And we consistently found that you lose a lot of material by baling, by compacting the material to the point, and it kind of makes sense logically when you think about, and balers really compact.
Oh yeah, I've seen it.
Material. And so, particularly when you take things like glass, plastic bottles, and you compress them in with all of the other materials, it is very difficult. You've kind of interlocked the materials, right? You've broken the glass, you've interlocked the materials, and so it becomes extremely difficult to effectively remove all of the distinct product lines on the back end and provide a quality product to industry to use as a feedstock for new materials. And so we really felt strongly, and that became the core of our proposal, was that yes, there's still going to be breakage, even with a loose loading, because you're still loading it loose.
The percentage is a lot lower.
But the percentage of that loss seems to be a lot lower, and the marketability on the back end is much higher by doing the loose loading versus the baling. And we've also been able to, or working to achieve parity with what can go over the road, because one of the concerns the city had was, well, by loose loading, you're not going to get the same weights on the loads, right? Because it's not as compacted.
Yeah.
And isn't that going to ultimately cost more and be more detrimental to the environment from a greenhouse gas perspective, because we need to send more trailer loads to Ohio under the loose? Well, we were able to find a couple different trailer designs that can accommodate more material, so they're basically just larger in their volume, so that the net over the road is equivalent to what was happening with the baled material. So we were able to kind of address that concern, a legitimate concern, about what would be lost by not baling the material and achieving kind of those efficiencies. So we're confident that we'll hit those numbers over the long term and provide a higher quality product on the back end. So between that and the ability to upscale glass and some of the other recyclables, frankly, Rumpke is able to achieve a higher kind of end use for some of the paper products that were otherwise being marketed by Waste Management as kind of a mixed grade. They're able to provide an extra level of separation, so get a higher payback on some of the grades of paper fiber that are coming into the system.
And then are you reaching out, you're doing educational efforts to residents and businesses so we can get the percentage higher of people actually recycling?
Definitely. So the nice thing about being the hauler and now being the processor, we actually get to see what's coming in from residents right there, real time on the floor. So with that, we're going to do a giant educational outreach campaign pretty much over the next year. And the reason we're choosing a year is because we want to do the top 12 contaminants that we see that Ann Arbor residents are basically putting into their curbside carts that maybe they shouldn't, or we just want to educate around what we're actually seeing coming in. So the ways that we're going to do that are through mailers, so right in your mailbox, but then we're going to really kind of transition to digital, because obviously being a recycling organization, we don't want to clog up your mail with a bunch of recycled content mailers. So we are going to do a digital campaign with videos, so again you can see what's coming into the MRF, what you're actually putting into the bin, and on our social media as well. We're going to really try and get the word out to how to really be a better recycler.
Awesome. And then we're just about out of time, but if you guys want to talk about what you hope to see for the future of recycling now that you guys are like the #1 entity.
I just hope that Ann Arbor gets back to a point of kind of that reinvigorated state of recycling. In the early 90s, we used to be kind of national leaders and everybody was looking towards us about how to do it. And I think we've fallen off a little bit from that point, so I want everybody to get excited about recycling again, and we're hoping with the educational campaign that we can do that.
Yeah, I think from my perspective that the city can make a decision fairly soon on whether or not it can salvage the existing facility, and in any case to really be looking at that longer term and what do we need to do to capitalize and create a new state-of-the-art long-term facility that ideally will be a regional facility. There won't be simply an Ann Arbor MRF, but a regional MRF. And so the city has already begun some conversations with Washtenaw County, I think, and some of the other players in the region to see, hey, how can we cooperate? Because I think that the effect of that can be that it's lower cost for everyone. You can achieve certain economies of scale by working together. And I think it also would help to standardize the recycling system in Washtenaw County. One of the frustrations right now is that you have a patchwork of different communities that have different standards and set out requirements and so on. And so to the extent that we can have a countywide system, I think it'll make life so much easier for everyone and achieve higher recovery.
Definitely, yeah.
All right. Well, thank you both for being on the show.
Thank you.
Hey, thank you.
Visit a2gov.org/CTN for more on this and other programs. Thanks for watching and tune in next time to FYI.